And it was just interesting because you had said something to me out there while we were talking. You said, I'm not where I was, but I'm not where I want to be. I'm in between the two. And that's where I kind of feel like, we are right now, is the breakout from slavery into the wilderness. It's not the promised land, but it's going to be way better than where we've come from. Right. Your thoughts?
I definitely see that we're getting paid to leave right now. It's like we're given
paid to leave.
Son. I mean, that's just the season that I see us in. And we've talked about this. And I remember y'all having this conversation and him talking about it. And it's not so much that we felt like what God's greatness for us was a minute level, because by saying that we're in the promised land at this level would be like you're demoting really whom the Lord is and really what that promised land is. But it was just the starting of this opening of becoming free and not wanting to go back. And knowing I'll never go back. So it was like, to us, it really felt like the promised land, because for once we were free and we felt fine by saying, we're not going to try to do anything to go back. They say people that are been incarcerated for a long time, they'll get out and they'll be free, and then they'll do something to go back because that's what they're familiar with. But it was like we were so free inside of being broken out of that's what felt like the promised land, like the freedom of knowing that we'll never go back to this ever. It felt like, this is the promised land for us, because we were in such bondage. If you've been incarcerated for all of these years, I'm not saying we were, but if you have, and then you just get out and you're just walking the streets and you've not, okay, yes, you own nothing, you're poor, you're broke, but just that freedom, how can you even measure that freedom for that man or that woman? It to them, it must feel like, a
whole new life.
Yes. Like
taking everything in, new buildings, new foods, new sayings, new cars. Yeah, I mean, totally different.
Right. You're seeing something as such, you're like, this has to be, this has to be. Compared to where I was, this is the promised land. This is greatness. Because I've had somebody say, but when you say that, or when you think that, did you think that you were demoting really what the Lord had for you? But no, because it was where we were at. It was like having that fresh air for the first time. It was like having, he read a book called Fresh Air, and it was just having this reality that we did not know before, that was such a greater level. It made us feel like, okay, this has to be right. What this is meaning. This is the entering into the promised land.
And you're basically, you haven't pointed it out, but basically financially and spiritually and with your family, I mean, you kind of got a three-fold package that your life has been extraordinarily different for the better in the last year.
Right. The enhancement of what we have seen has been so beyond anything that we ever expected. It was like, okay, this must be what this is. That's why it felt like that. Because it would be hard for someone that has been a slave to go to the level that we went at such a rapid pace and not think of the greatness of that feeling, to just be like, but really, it's really just the in-between level. Because inside there was such an excitement of what all the Lord was doing in us. It was like, it felt more like demoting him by saying I'm in the in-between stages. So how much greater is it that we're not in the promised land yet?
Well, it was interesting because if you think about what happened for the Israelites, right? So here's Moses. He's like, we're gonna leave. We're gonna do this, and then they start all asking the owners to repay them for what they've lost and what they've taken. And they go, oh, well, that's a nice necklace. Oh, well, yeah, I like all that cattle there. Well, I'll take that cart so that I can load your dishes up on it. And these people are giving all of their stuff away. Right. And like we've talked about, basically, the eyes of the people who were slaves became open to the opportunities before them. And
some of them did.
your eyes have been open to the opportunities before you now, and then you've totally gone the route of the opportunity. And now your life looks just like how the slaves did. You know, they had nothing, and now they're walking out with all this stuff. You know, I mean, talk to me about that, kind of that transition for you, you know, going from the one to the other.
I think at first it was great, exciting, wonderful, wow. But then it's like what we talked about earlier. I may not be where I see us. You know, maybe we want to be here, or not necessarily here, but we want to just keep striving. But we're here, so it's kind of a disappointment at sometimes. But then we look back to where we were, and then what you were talking about. I think at first it was great, but then the battle is always you either see where you're at or you look where you were, instead of always looking to the future. Just like a windshield's 40 times, 50 times bigger than a rear view mirror. But you can't look at yourself, look at the gauges, and look at the rear view mirror and never look ahead. And I think sometimes for us it's been I don't know, challenging to look ahead as a business and as the church. You know, to not be involved in a traditional church like we've been growing up all of our life, me and her both. It's like, it's a little challenging. At first it was great, but now it's a little challenging because you don't see the results, or you don't see the growth, or you don't see. But then, like what we talked about, I've always been tried to be the kind of person that, okay, we may not be where we're at, but I mean, where we want to be, but let's look at where we're at. You know, we definitely aren't where we were. And I think as us, from a church standpoint, from a personal standpoint, from a business standpoint, we balance each other out good like that. But I think for me, it's been a little more of a wrestling match for me the latter part of this year than it was the beginning part of the year.
And what's funny is even in the wrestle, it's the best part of our life together.
Yeah.
Even in that wrestle. So it brings it back to the perspective that we know we're not in the promised land, because of even in the wrestle, it is the most amazing that our family and our marriage and our life and our business and our finances has ever been in our entire married life. So, like I said before, I mean, 2019, I love you. Just what all that the Lord showed us that is capable without laws, without boundaries, without boxes, without control, without leadership, without all of these things that we spent almost 16 years of our marriage life thinking was how we would spend the rest of our life until we went home to be with the Lord. We thought that we were on the path of this is how this is, and that this is where we have to be. If we're going to be in leadership under a denomination, going in this way, working and serving for the Lord in this manner, then this is good enough. This should be good enough for us.
This is the system that you're going to have to stay in, go that road of every other rut down that road, and you were willing to stay that system.
We'll be right here because it should be enough for us.
But that system in and of itself was slavery.